Nice. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Friday technical live stream. Today, I'm not at the Finster channel. I'm here in the Wized channel because we are doing a bit of content of learning education content for Wized. So, anybody who's here, hello, everyone. I'm going to say hi to whoever comments here in the audience, and we're going to start in about 4 minutes from now. Okay. So, if you have to go grab something, get ready to learn with me, to build something with me, go ahead and do it. Demetrius, hey, thank you for coming. Forex, Gustavo, hey, nice. Actually, I'm gonna tweet about this. Is this time? I've got 3 minutes before we deep dive into this. Let's do quick post. Today, what can I do? Today, I'm starting a live stream in the Wized YouTube channel to today. Actually, let me tell it to you guys. But today, you see it in the title. But today we're talking about everything on Firebase. So the Firebase integration in Wized, I think that it deserves more love than it gets. But that's basically because people needs to be confident with it, understand it, and give it a try. So my goal today is that you guys give it a try. So I will be doing a deep dive into the Firebase integration Wized, and that's what I'm trying to tweet right now. So starting a live stream the Wized YouTube channel to teach about the Firebase integration. Kamsen hi. Cool. Like that. Okay, done. Great. Nevs, thank you for dropping by. Hope that you're having a good day. Cool. Okay. Great. Well, I've got 2 more minutes. I'm going to wait until those 2 minutes pass. So if you want to ask anything, if you just want to say, how was the week? How was the day? How is the weekend looking like? What are you going to do? Whatever. Let me know. Hey, Simon. Thank you for coming. Great topic, Pavel is saying. Yes, it is. Yes, absolutely. You really don't need any other thing than Firebase if you want to build a web application. Firebase is pretty powerful, and it has its ups and downs when it comes to popularity, especially in the web app environment. Like I know that in the native apps ecosystem, it's a big thing, but in the web ecosystem, sometimes it gets very popular. Sometimes it starts to get a bit of hate because there are other options and people just tend to go there, etc. But Firebase has been a player for a long time, and it's really a good solution, solid solution that works very well, especially if you've got dynamic applications and you care about reactive, real time. You also want authentication. You want to deal with storage, with complex queries, whatever. Firebase is pretty cool. Dimitri is saying at some point we should explain why NoSQL or Postgres or MySQL. Yes, I mean, depending on the size of the app, it really doesn't matter much when it comes to performance, because unless you're doing millions and millions of reads and writes, doesn't really change when it comes to performance. When it comes to ergonomics, SQL, in the case of it has benefits when it comes to structuring the data, because you've got very well defined data structures, so you are sure that you're not going to mess up anything. When it comes to NoSQL, you have more control. You can store the data in however you want, so you have to be more careful. What is a lot of flexibility can become a food gun if you don't know what you're doing. So I think that it's great to at least educate ourselves about this. Is this webinar suitable for people who are not yet familiar with Wized and Firebase, or does it require some expertise in the topic? You can follow along, don't worry. Um, this webinar is dedicated for anybody who is learning Wized or wanting to learn Wized. So although I'm going to be talking about some specifics of Wized, you can follow along. Don't worry. If there's anything that you don't fully understand, it's not going to block you from understanding the rest. And you can always go back and watch any other tutorial to understand the specific bit, a specific functionality on the Wiz platform that you did not understand. But don't worry, you can follow along without any problem. And it's 6 minutes past the time. I'm 1 minute late. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen and start talking about Wist and Firebase. As I mentioned, Firebase is an integration that is native inside Wist. So essentially, when you go to my apps and you try to create a new app, you're going to see that one of the options is Firebase. So today, what I want to do is walk you through creating a new Firebase app, integrating it in Wist, and then I want to walk you through all the different methods that you can use and implement for your applications. I have not a long time. I have about an hour, so I'll try to be fast so I can cover a lot of different use cases. But if I don't have enough time, we might do another live stream talking about the rest because I really want to do the deep dive on everything that you can do. I don't want to stay just on the surface. I want to get into details so you guys understand it. So if you're watching this after this live stream has ended, hopefully we will set a few timestamps so you can at least check each of the different requests that you can do with Firebase, and you can learn the one that you need. Dimitri is saying at some other point we could learn how to deploy our own server and self-host. Okay, yeah, great. Okay, great. So let's do that. First of all, what I want to do is I want to go to Firebase. In that case, simply look for Firebase in Google. You'll be prompted to log into Google Cloud, and in there you will see that in Firebase you can create new projects. Okay. In my case, I've already created one project that it's called Wiz Demo in this case. So after you create a project, you are going to see this, or maybe actually this in here. Okay, so in Firebase, we've got a bunch of things. We've got a real-time database included. We've got authentication included. We've got storage included. We've got functions, server functions included, etc. There's a lot of things in here that we can do like this. You can see the database, the functions. We can even host servers, as Demetrius was asking. We've got storage, etc. And then we also can run things like A/B testing, etc., etc. So there's a lot of things that can be done in here. Today, I want to focus on the main building blocks, which is the database and authentication. So let's go to our database. If we open this Firestore database, which if you don't find it in here in the shortcuts, you can always open this build and you go to the Firestore database. And you will see that this is completely empty. It is empty, obviously, because it's a new project. The moment that we start creating data, you will see how the data is stored in what's called collections. So Firebase has two main concepts inside the database. It has collections, and inside the collections, we've got documents. A collection is a group, a logic group that groups groups documents that are related to something, and then the documents belong to individual items. So if you come from Webflow CMS, a collection would be like a Webflow collection, and a document would be like a Webflow collection IM. Okay, simple. But before we start creating anything, we need to set it up in Wist. We want to create this connection between Firebase and Wist. So here in my top left section, I'm going to go to my settings and I will click on project settings because we want to get some of this info. Actually, we want to go to, hold on. Is it in here? Actually, I think that we only need this. Yeah. So project settings, general, and we want to scroll down a bit until we reach here, this section that you see Firebase config. Okay. In Firebase config, you will see a bunch of things. We've got API key, auth domain, project ID, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And also another thing that we were going to need is the project ID, this one. So let's go back to Wized. I'm going to open apps and I will create a new app. I'm going to click Firebase and let's name this something very obvious, like Firebase. And we need three things. We need the project ID, we need the app ID, and we need the API key. So if we go back to Firebase, we've got the project ID from here, like that. So I'm going to paste this in here. Then we need the app ID. And this app ID, I can find it if I go down here and we'll look for this. Okay. Don't get the quotes. Okay. I don't want to get these double quotes. I only want to get what's between the double quotes. So this. Let's copy this. Let's paste it in here. And then the API key again. Let's go back here. API key. We grab it and we paste it. That's it. We are done. We've got the connection ready. So now when we go to requests, we will be able to create a new request, select Firebase, and from Firebase, we will see all these different methods that are available. Let's just check them. We can get an item, get a list of items, create a new item, update an item, set an item, which is setting an item means that if the item does not exist, it creates the item. If the item does exist, it updates that item. Delete an item. Then we can, there's this additional option for unsubscribing from real time, which will make sense when we talk about getting items lists because we've got built-in real time. Then when we come to authentication, we can get the user to see if the user is logged in or not, update the user's profile. Then we've got a bunch of methods to sign in. We can sign in using an OAuth method like Google, GitHub, Facebook, blah, 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 blah. Okay. We also can sign in using email and password in this case. And then also we've got signing up for email and password. Okay, then we can update the user email, we can send a password reset, we can confirm a password reset, we can sign out. All of these methods are authentication related. And then we've got some other goodies like uploading a file because we also have storage in Firebase. So we can upload files and then we can also get file URLs in case that you wanted to display like an image or you wanted the user to download a specific file. You can get a URL from that file. And then lastly, we can also create cloud functions and run them from Wized, which would be this, okay? No, I don't want to invoke a cloud function. The first thing that I'm going to do is we're going to go from top to bottom, okay? So let's try to get an item. But to get an item, first we need some items, right? So first of all, I'm going to call these get item. Get item, this will be the request. And then see how this is asking me for a path. So the thing that we need to do first is create some data because I don't have any. And then we will set that path. So if we go back to Firebase, now I'm going to go to my Firestore database. And in here, let's start a collection. Okay. And you've probably already seen the design, but I'm going to be using just like tasks. I want to create tasks. So let's call these collection tasks like this. Okay. So each user can have its own tasks, like I have to do a live stream. And for now, because we're generating the documents in here just to give it some data, let's do auto ID. And in here, I want to do a bunch of things. First of all, I want to, let's do description. Actually, let's just add one field for now. And the description will be, may I do a live stream about Firebase, like that. Okay, cool. So you can see that now we've got these tasks collection with a single document inside that is just this one. And then this document has a bunch of data. Right now, only one field, description, do a live stream about Firebase. So how do we retrieve this data to display it here in Wized? We want to define a path that points to this specific document, okay? The path, it's this. It's kind of like a URL if you were visiting a website. Imagine that this was a website. The website would be in the tasks folder, and then inside the tasks folder, I would have my document ID. It's the same exact thing. And actually, if I check here this path that I have in Firebase, I can see this. Look at this. This is the path that we want to do. Okay. /tasks / the document ID. So actually, let's just copy this and go back to Wized. And here in the path, we want to return this. This is going to be a string. And because it's a string, we want to put it between quotes like this. And let's just put this. That's it. This is saying, hey, get an item, and the item is located in this specific direction, in this specific path. So if we close this and we go to the overview of the request and we play this, you are going to see how we get some data. But let me expand this. I want to show it properly. So let's go to the data store. Let me expand this, requests. And here we've got the get item like that. So if we play this, you can see how we are getting this data. I'm getting some data, and it includes the description, which is why I set in here. And additionally, you can see how Wized injects one additional field, which is the doc ID field. Okay, this is done for convenience because many times it's going to happen that you want to mutate the item, you want to interact with the item somehow, and in those cases, it makes sense to be using the ID to identify them. So in that case, Wized, it's giving you the document ID. Obviously, we could also, when creating the item, I could have also done this, doc ID, and created the item like this. This is totally valid. If you do this, Wized will just respect it. So if I do this, nothing is going to change. But if you don't have the document ID added, Wized will do it for you. So we've got this. Now, if I wanted to display this data, let's just do it super quick. I'm going to go to Webflow, and in Webflow, let's just do this. I'm going to say, what can we do? What can we do? We can do Wized get item ID and Wized get item description like this. So if I publish this and I go back to Wized, okay, let's refresh this super quick. And now I can open my X-Ray. I can see this and I can say, hey, set the text to the data of the get item. So in this particular case, remember that we've got the data like this, r.getitem.data.description or doc ID. So in this case, if I click on the item again, oh yeah, I have already clicked. If I do here and I say return r.getitem.data.docid like this, and what this is going to do is display the document ID. If I do the same thing for the description, let's do this, return r.getitem.data.description like that. Cool. And look at that. We've got this. Nice. If I wanted to not have to click every single time for the request to play it in here, all I would have to do is just set this button up. So when I click on it, it performs the request. So let's do this super quick, and then I'm going to jump into the next method. So let's get this get item, and let's do attribute with get item button like this. So let's publish this. Let's go back to Wized and set it up so when we click on this item, we perform the request. So X-ray, get item button, and in here, I want to set an event that on click will do an action, and the action will be perform the request of getting the item like that. So when I do this, look at that. Yay, we've got the item from Firebase. Cool. Okay, but this is handy if you're just getting a specific item. Actually, let me give you another hint. Because many times, if I just explain this, it's like, oh, okay, but what do I do with this? Well, many times you will want to display some data when you could visit a page, right? Imagine that you were loading a blog post, or you were loading, I don't know, like a product or something. Most definitely, you're going to be visiting it dedicated page for that, right? So imagine that, for example, this ID, it's coming from a query parameter. It's coming from a navigation parameter. So in that case, what I could do is go to the data store, general, and I could go to navigation and create another parameter that could be, let's just say, task, like this, right? And in that case, if I grab this document in here and I add the parameter here to load the page using that task and add this, that means that now whenever we load the page, we are getting the task value in here. So instead of hard coding this when we are doing the request, instead of hard coding it like this, it would make sense to get the correct ID from the query parameters. So then we can be loading the same page but with different data anytime just by switching this query parameter. So I don't want to be hard coding this in this particular case. I want to do this plus and then on dot parameter dot task. So essentially, this is just concatenating, saying, hey, / tasks / the task parameter that it's on the current page, like that. And now if I refresh this, remember that I'm loading the canvas using this. Okay, it's exactly as if I was doing this. So the Waffle site in this case, and then question mark task equals to this. It's the same thing. So now when I get the item, again, it's going to work because we're getting the ID correctly. Now, let's say that I want to get more items. I don't want to get a single item. I want to be getting all the tasks that exist. So before doing anything, let's go to Firebase and let's create a couple more tasks. Can you guys, if you're here in the comments, give me a couple descriptions for a couple tasks? Yeah, give me a couple ideas. Let's see. Come on, this is gonna be auto ID. I'm gonna ask one. So this will be description, and this is gonna be ask people to give me descriptions. Like that. We've got one. Let's see. Come on, guys, give me another description. Description. Let me see. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. And if after 10 seconds you don't give me any descriptions, I'm going to create them myself. Let me do another one. I'm going to say, make up another description. And then another one. That would be description. I can walk my dog. Auto ID, description. And then in here, I can, I don't know, cook dinner, whatever, like that. Okay, 10 seconds are passed. So we are going to use these tasks in here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tasks, like that. So now in here, getting the items list, the first thing that I'm going to need is create a new request for getting the items list. So let's do that. Create a new request. This will be get items list. And in this case, I'm going to choose Firebase. I'm going to choose a method of getting a items list. And in here, we have to do the same thing. We have to define a path, right? But keep in mind that when we were getting a single item, we were giving it the full path. So the collection path and the document path. Now we just want to get the collection path because from there, it's where we're going to be querying all the items. So I don't want to get all of this. I just want to get this part that it's defining this collection. So let's copy this. Let's go back to Wized. And in here, the path, I'm going to open quotes because it's a string. / tasks. That's it. That's really it. And I'm gonna now talk about the rest of things that we can do, but that's really it. If I go now to my data store and I see my get items list in here, I can already play it and I'm gonna get all the items list. Let's expand this so we can explore it like that. Close this. Get items list, it's returning the data for all the items of the tasks in this case. So I've got the ask people to give me descriptions, make up another description, walk my dog, cook dinner, do a live stream about Firebase. Nice. Like that. Great. Now, let me quickly render this because I want to show you how to render a list, and then we'll move on with all these features. So first of all, let's do that when we click on this button, we perform the request, and then let's render this specific list with all the IDs and descriptions. So here, button, I'm going to do with get items list button, and this will be Wized get items list let's just say item or card. Yeah, card, for example. And then I want to get the ID as well. So this, whoops, Wized, this will be ID, and then this will be Wized get items list description. Whoops, description. Like that. Okay, so let's publish this and let's go back to Wized super quick. Cool. First of all, refresh, X-ray. When we click on this, we want to perform a request, and this request will be the get items list, like that. Great. Now, because I'm going to have a bunch of items in here, and I just realized that I made a typo. I did the I capital. It's fine. Don't hate me for that. We want to render a list from all the items that we're getting. So let's go in here and let's say, hey, using these template card, do me create it, replicate it, clone it for all of the items that we're getting. So list, we're gonna need an index variable. So let's just click on plus and let's say index, and the initial value will be 0. If you want to learn about rendering lists and all that stuff, Rory has a bunch of tutorials, so don't worry, I'm going fast in purpose. You can check the Wized channel to check that. And then in here, return, we want to return the data that we get when clicking this button. So let's go back again to the data store. I've got here, if I click on this button, I'm getting all this data. So now this means that when defining the list value for this card rendering, I can do r.getItemsList.data, because this data holds an array of all the data, all the documents that we got, like that. Great. So if I refresh this, get items, boom, 5 items. But what's missing now is that we also need to render the ID and render the description. So let's do it. ID, in this case, oops, not list, sorry. I want to display some text, and this text will be r.getItemsList.data. Then we access it using the index variable, and that will be v.index. And inside here, we've got the data. So this would be the doc ID for the doc ID. And for the description, I'm going to do a similar thing, get items list, data. We access the data using the index, so v.index, and then description, like that. So if we refresh this, get items, we've got the items in here, right? Now, let's go back to the request. Get items list. Let's see things that we can do with it, because getting all the items by default, it's fine, but most of the times you want to do additional things like filtering, sorting, limiting, or real time. Let me start with real time because that's one of the key functionalities of Firebase, and it's that it has real-time connection with the database. So if I toggle the subscribe real-time and we call it again, looks like nothing changed, right? But we can now update the database and all the changes will be automatically reflected on my site. So let's see, for example, instead of saying ask people to give me descriptions, let's change that to, I don't know, we can say show how real time works. I've updated this. I go back to my page and you can see how this data was already changed automatically. If I did a side by side comparison, you would see how it changed immediately, like maybe just a few milliseconds, but it's real time. If I change this again to see for real, it works. It's so fast that I cannot switch. I cannot switch fast enough to see how it changes. Anyways, so you can see how things are dynamic, very easy to display the real time changes. Simon is asking, is the sorting reactive? So if I have a sorting switch, for example, then it will update results live if I have sub real time. Yes, it is. It is. Let's do it. So let's imagine that I want to sort. Okay, so let's do. Um, I've got the sorting. Look at the items again. So let's create a sorting condition. I want to sort by a specific field path, and a field path means one of the fields that we've got here. So in this case, remember that we've got the description property. I also added this doc ID, but just to not confuse you guys, I'm going to remove it. We've got this description field. So I want to say, hey, I want to sort using this description field. If I had more fields, I could also define those as well. But in this case, I just have description. So let's use description. And I can say the direction, I want it to be ascending, for example, right? Um, like that. So now this is doing the ascending, so going from A to Z. If I change this to descending, get items again. Now this is going from Z to A. Now I just realized, Simon, actually no, the sorting is not dynamic because it's not based on functions. So at this point, it would not be like you cannot change the sorting dynamic. You could potentially um, combine two sets of. You could potentially combine two different requests. So when you are sorting either up or down, you're switching between calling one request or the other. That could be an option. But I'm gonna think about this because I think that there's a valid use case in there. Thank you, Simon, for your suggestion. Let's go back to ascending. And now let's imagine that we also want to filter the data, right? There's some cases where you don't want to get all the data. Maybe you only want to get the tasks from a specific user, which we're going to see in a second. You only want to get the tasks that contain a specific value, that don't contain a specific value, that they have a date, and you want to only get the tasks that are newer than that specific date. Like you can do a lot of different filtering. So let's do that. In the filter, I'm going to say filter, new filter, and I'm going to filter by a field. In this case, it's going to be description. And I can choose from a bunch of things. It must be equal to something, or not equal to something, or less than something, greater than something, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to any of the values, not equal to any of the values, or an array containing something. Okay, so imagine that we say it must not be equal to, and let's do this, for example, like that. So if I'm saying, hey, return me all the fields where the description is not equal to, for real it works. If I do this, now I'm going to get 4 tasks because the for real it works, it's filtered out like that. Obviously, this, anytime that you see a function in Wized, it means that it's dynamic. So although you are seeing that I'm hard coding this like that, I could make this dynamic by using a variable, by using a form result, by using an input result. So you could potentially have filters where the user can, fill them. And dynamically with that data, you would be setting the filters. And you know what? Actually, we could potentially do it. We could potentially do it if I wanted to show you this, because it's going to be real time. And the good thing of real time is that it works uh, in real time. um, Let's see. If I have enough time, I'm gonna do it later. Okay, great. So no filter for now. Sorting, it's fine. You can also do pagination if you wanted to start after a specific document, because imagine that you've got a long list and you want to break it down maybe in pages of 10. You could say, hey, start after, and you could say, hey, start after the 11th document, or start after this specific document ID that I'm giving to you. So you can do that with pagination as well. But let's move on, because now I want to create a new item. Okay. So when creating a new item, all I want to do again is create a new request. Let's do that. And this will be create item. Like this. You can name this however you want. I'm just doing this for organization. Let's choose Firebase and let's choose create a new item like that. Same thing as when getting the items list. First of all, you have to define in the path what collection do you want to create the item in. So in my case, I only have one collection, that is the tasks collection. But maybe I had different collections and I wanted to choose like what specific collection am I creating this into. I could even have nested collections. That's one of the things that we could talk about in Firebase later. But collections are not just top top level based. You could have a collection that contains a document, and that document can also have a nested collection, and that nested collection can have more documents, etc. You can nest things as much as you want. But let's not do that for now. I just want to create a new item in the tasks section. So go back here, and in the path, I want to do it in the tasks path. Tasks like this, because it's this from Firebase. Like that. So now I am creating the item. I need to define what data I'm sending to Firebase for that item. In this particular case, I've created a form that it's basically just gathering the description. And then when we click on this, it submits the form. So we can create the item with this description. But I need to set it up. So let's go back here to Webflow, and I've got my form like that. So first of all, I want to define this form. So I'm going to do Wized, and I'm going to do create item form like that. And that's it. That's all I need. The form input, I need to name it with a proper name that I can identify. So in my case, I want to name this, not name, but I'm going to name it description like this. You can find these settings in here, or oops, you can simply click in here. The name, I want it to be description. You will see why now. So if we publish this and we go to West and we refresh this, now in this form, I can target it and I can say, hey, when we submit this form, so add event, submit. When we submit this form, I want to prevent default, first of all, because we don't want the form to be submitted to Webflow. And then I want to perform a request, and that request will be create the item, like that. Okay. I could also reset the form as well. So when I submit the form, we create the item and we clear the values. So now that I've got my form defined, I can go back to my create item request. And in here, in the fields, we can define the data that we're sending. In this particular case, we are only doing the description. So let's do it. Description. We need to define what field type this is, which is regular data. That's good. And now we need to get the field value to pass it to Firebase. So in this particular case, because we're using a form submission, we can get the data using the form, the F keyword. So if I type f.createItemForm, then inside here, I can get the description like this. I'm not getting IntelliSense. I don't know why. Why I'm not getting it. The field isn't there, so I should definitely see it. Oh, okay, cool. I had to refresh the page. So you can see how I've got f.createItemForm.description. And this is the data that we are going to pull from the form after we submit it, and then we send that data to Firebase. So let's do it. I think that we're good because the form is already set up. So when we submit it, we perform the create item request, and the create item request is getting the description field from f.createItemForm.description. Let's try it. Okay, new description, whatever. Gonna say hi to Yash, like that. So if I submit it, hi Yash. So if I submit it, you will see how there's a new document here. So the first one in this case, that it was created like that immediately just by submitting that form, right? Now, remember that I can get the items list, and remember that it's real time. That means that if I create a new item in here, this will be automatically applied. So let's do like check it how it appears like that. And look at that. We've got it in here. What else? We could say another one. Cool. Like that. And it's being created like this. Now I'm realizing that the sorting is actually not right. Something is not working as expected in here in the sorting. So we're gonna look into it. Actually, yes. Description. Ascending. Maybe I'm doing something wrong in here with the lower cases. I'm not sure. Boo. Yeah, it looks like it's lowercase sensitive. That's why it's being sorted this way. I don't know. Weird things from Firebase. Okay, so we've got the getting items list, creating items. How about we delete items as well, right? Um, I'm gonna do so when we click any of these, we delete it like that. So first of all, let's create a request and let's call these delete item like this. And I'm gonna say, actually, no, instead of doing that, because I think that will be confusing, let's add a proper button inside. Let's do it. So if I come here, let's do a button. I'll just copy this here. And this button will have an attribute of Wized get items list delete like this. And it will say delete. And it will also not be brand, but it will be secondary, for example, or normal. Yeah, like that is fine. Like that. Okay. So when we click on this button, we want to delete the specific item that we just clicked. And remember, we are using real time. So that means that we will see this immediately. We don't have to worry about reloading the list, re-rendering the list, all that stuff. It's going to be handled by us, by Wized. So come here. Let's create the delete item. So delete item request, choose Firebase, and then delete item. Again, now we need to define the specific document that we are deleting. So what we will do is when we click this delete button from the item, we will dynamically detect which item was clicked so we know the ID of that item, so that we can pass that ID to the delete item request. Okay, so let's do it. We are gonna say X-ray get items list delete, and I will say, hey, create an event. So when we click on this, it will perform a request of delete the item like that. Okay, and now got the items, and now in here in the path we are gonna say, hey, tasks / plus, and now because this request is running after after clicking on this button in here, Okay. That means that we can have access to well, actually, no, let's make it simpler. We can simply do r.getItems list data, and let's access it using the index. And then in here, we can access the document ID. So we are saying, hey, from the data that we're using to render, okay, access the one from the index that we just clicked. We do it like this. And in there, give me the document ID, which means that then we will end up having, whoops, we will end up, come on, hold on, I just messed this. Now, we will end up having a route like this, /tasks / a specific ID. So let's go back here. If we do this and we play this, you can see how I'm getting a specific ID in this particular case, right? This is what we want to get. So let's do that. Let's refresh. And let's get the items. And when I click any of these, let's remove the boo item. This goes away. Not only goes away in here, but also it goes away in here. Let's delete the say hi to Yash. So here, say hi to Yash goes away. This item was now deleted. Let's delete the make up another description, for example. So would be this one. And this is no longer in here. All real time and all handled by Wized. Very handy. Easy, right? Okay, great. I've got 13 more minutes. Great. That means that we can update items as well. So let's update items. Let's go in here. Let's create another request that's going to be update an item. So update item, Firebase, create this, and let's do update item. In that case, now I need to define again the item that I am updating. So I need to get a specific ID. I need to get a specific path that points to the item that we want to update. So imagine that, for example, I wanted to update this one. I want to get this specific path. Let's do this super quick. So let's do return and let's hard code it for now. So let's do this. And in here, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to update a specific field. And the field that I want to update will be the description. You can always add more fields. So imagine that I had more and more and more fields. You could do as many fields as you wanted. So don't worry. But for now, we only have the description. And in here, instead of walk my dog, I want to say walk my cat. So if I play this request and I come here, now we've updated this to be a walk my cat, like that. So, boom, boom, boom. Now what we want to do is dynamically, instead of doing this, we want to do it from here. So one thing that I'm thinking is that we could, let's just make it simple. And inside here, let's just add a form. Okay. And this form will be again this. So I will have let me close this. Let me close this. I will just copy straight up the same thing that I have down here in here. Okay. Like that. And this will be update item. Like this. I know that it's ugly. Usually what you would like to do is have some kind of edit button. So when you click on the edit button, you display the form instead of doing what I'm doing right now, which is ugly as hell, but it's going to work. So let's just do it. In here, in the form, there's going to be a specific form inside each of the items, okay? So I will have this called with update item form, for example. And in here, actually, that's it. I don't need anything else. Pretty simple. So let's go back to Wized. And in here, hold on. And in here, now we've got this. So again, what we want to do is get this form. So when we submit this form, we are going to update the item that it belongs to. So if I submit this form, we want to update this item. If I submit this form, we want to update this item, etc. Right? So let's select this. Let's say, hey, add an event on submit, prevent default, reset the form, all good. Actually, actually, we can make it even cooler later. But for now, let's do that. And let's say perform a request and we want to update the item. So now we need to get dynamically the data that belongs to the item that we just submitted. So if we go to the update item request, here, instead of doing this, which again is hard coded, we don't want to do that. Instead, we're going to say tasks plus the document ID of the item that we just submitted. So r.getItemsList dot data, let's access this using the index variable, and in here, document ID, like that. And now we can retrieve this. Um, we can now retrieve this in here using the form. So in here, I'm going to do update item form. This will be an array, of course, because now we've got multiple item forms. So if you check, 1 second, if we go in here, right, now we've got a bunch of forms like this. Actually, let me expand it. Let's close everything. If I inspect the forms, like this, you will see how update item form, it's not a single value, it's multiple values. And the reason is because each of the items has a dedicated form. So the first item would be the first form, the second item would be the second form, the third item would be the third form, etc. So we want to get this data using the index as well. So if we go back to my request, which is already open in here, here I want to get this using the index variable as well. And then in here, I want to get, hold on, how did I call this? I need to call this description like that. Because we use the form names, the input names as the accessor for the data. So in that case, I want to do dot description like this. Okay. So essentially with this, we're saying, just to recap everything, we're saying, hey, when I submit this, perform the request of update the item. Specifically, I want you to update the item that belongs to the ID of this item that I just interacted with. And also, the description, you want to get it from the form, specifically the description in the index that it's placed at this item in here. So if this item is the first one, we want to get the first update item form description. If it's the second one, we want to get that it's zero based. So the first one will be zero, the second one will be one, etc. So let's try it. Let's refresh. Let's get the items. We've got cook dinner. So now I'm going to say cook lunch instead. Submit this. And hold on. Oh, yeah. Because, well, you can see now how the sorting is reactive. Because I changed this to a different name. And because somehow Firebase, it's distinguishing between capital letters and lowercase letters. It's changing the sorting. Let me go lunch. Let me put it in here like that. So cook lunch again like that. But if I disable the sorting, which I think that it's going to be the same, the best thing, just to avoid any weird behaviors. Even here, we update things. Now it's not going to sort the items, so I can name this whatever I want, that it's not going to change. So let's do whatever. And you can see how this goes. It's automatically updated. Yay. Like that. And if we check it, yay. This is working pretty nice. Pretty nice, huh? Like that. All we're doing is, hey, when we're submitting this, I've submitted this one. when we're submitting this, we're dynamically getting the data of the item that we just submitted and sending it to Firebase like this. Okay. Okay, great. Let me see if I can do one more method for database. And then I think that we can stop it in here, and maybe in the next live stream, we can talk about everything about authentication, because I'm seeing that there's still a bunch of things to talk about, and I only have 4 minutes. And I want to talk about how to sign up a user, how to log in a user, how to get data that is specific to a user, how to sign out a user, how to reset a password, how to blah, 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 all this stuff. I think that it deserves a dedicated live stream. So we've got an item, we've got an items list, we've created an item, updated an item, deleted items. We could potentially set items as well. We could potentially set item, but it's more specific. So instead of showing it to you, actually let's create it so you can see how it looks like. So if I do set item and I do here set item, you will see how it's exactly the same as create item. So if I go now and I select create item instead, you can see how it asks me for a path and it asks me for fields. That's the same thing for set item. It asks me for a path and it also asks me for fields. But you can see how additionally we've got these toggling here that it's saying, hey, merge the fields or not. The reason for that is because when you create these items, imagine that I'm saying, hey, tasks, and I'm saying, hey, instead of creating the item on tasks, maybe you want to create the item with a specific ID. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. You can define it. And when you do this, and I do description, and we do I just created this with set. And I run this. Okay. Now, if we go to Firebase, you will see how we have a dedicated ID. Instead of having these random IDs that Firebase gives me when I create items, I've got a unique ID that I just defined it in here. Set item. I defined it in here. Now, because set item means that if the item exists, if the item does not exist, create it. If it exists, update it. That means that obviously now if I try to do it again, instead of creating the item again, what it will do is it will update the item. So now I say I just updated this with set, right? And I run this again. Remember that I haven't changed the ID. It's still 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this case, it's still now going to be updating the 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, right? And we can decide if we want to merge the data or we want to overwrite the data. Because if I merge the data, that means that if I, for example, instead of updating this with the description field, I do it with a field that's called, I don't know, like color, okay? And I say return red. If I do this, now it will update this item, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if I don't select merge fields, what it will do is just completely overwrite the item, right? Let's try it. So come here. Actually, I need to run it. Let's run it. Play this. And now you will see how, whoops, I messed something up. Hold on. Color, regular data, tasks. Maybe, let me run it again. Okay, I needed to refresh. So you can see how it overwrote the whole data. Now imagine that instead of overwriting the data, you just want to add up the data, right? You want to merge the fields. So in that case, now imagine that instead of color, let's say, I don't know, like number. And I want to do return 10, okay? Instead of overwriting the whole document, maybe I just want to add up this data. So I'm going to merge the fields like this. And the moment that I do this, You can see how the previous data was preserved, the color is still there, but the number was added on top of it. Obviously, if I updated the color as well, doesn't matter if I'm merging fields, I'm going to be overwriting the value of color. But the other fields will also be preserved, if that makes sense. Leon is asking, how would we set up a like and comment function for all items? Interesting question. We could, for example, use nested collections. That could be an option. Let's say, um, yeah, why not? Depending on, yeah, let's imagine, because for example, for likes, you may want to have like two different systems. One system where you only count the likes, but you don't keep track of who liked it, right? You just say, okay, this has 10 likes, 15 likes, 20 likes. And if you hit on like, you just bump it up one number, right? 21, 22, 23, 5. Or maybe you want to actually keep track of everyone who liked this, right? If you wanted to keep track everyone, so if you wanted to just store the value, you would just simply have something like likes. Actually, let me remove this field. I don't want to use this document. So off it goes. So in here, maybe you would have something like likes, and this would be a number, and this number would start at 0, right? And when you click on it, you would add 1 to the number. But if you want to keep track of every single person or whoever added likes, maybe then you want to use nested collections. That's a very good system. So in that case, inside the item, I'm going to start a new collection, and this collection will be, let's do likes. And in this case, I'm going to generate a like, okay? And I'm going to add a field, and this field would be something like user ID. That could be an option. And in here, you would store the user ID who liked this. So I'm going to say it was 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And let's do another like, for example, auto ID, user ID, and it was by user 344321, like this. And also you could do comments as well. So if we go back to the document, I have this nested collection likes. Let's create a nested collection called comments as well. And in here, same thing, document ID, and I'm gonna add the user ID as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm gonna add another field that says like comment or message. And this will say, hey, this is cool, like this, right? And now for each of the items, you can retrieve the comments and likes. The way that you fetch nested data, it's simply doing the same thing as before. So when doing the get items list, when doing this get items list, um, for now, we have done this, right? / tasks, and that's it. And this means that we're getting all the items that are inside the tasks collection, right? But now I want to get all the items that are inside the likes collection that is inside the document in here. Same thing. I just need to grab this path, right? / tasks, / the document ID, / the nested collection. So if I hardcode this, just a second, instead of doing this, let's do this. And I get these items. Obviously now this is not rendering properly, but if I inspect the data, here, you can see how I'm getting the nested likes for this specific item, right? So I guess that the trickiest part, but I think that we can solve it, would be to load not only the data for this, but also the nested data. And the way that we can do this is, hold on a second, because I think that we actually do that by default. Don't we do that by default by doing a reference? Let me try something, because here I'm going to do reference document path. Now, likes. Hold on. No, the reference is only for specific documents. So in this particular case, what we would like to do is after having loaded the get items list, we want to loop through all the items and perform a request to get the nested likes, right? Yes. It would be tricky, but we could potentially do it. But I think that I would have to do it in a different live stream because it would be a bit tricky. Samuel is asking, what would be the better option to see if a current user has liked an item? Storing like posts in a user subcollection and going it over once, or go through each item's likes? Because isn't there a trade off between the case where a user's collection grows larger than the item's collection eventually? Ideally, I think that it's easier, it's better if you do it the other way around. So, because if you're storing all the likes from the users, so if you have the users collection and then you've got the likes, I need to draw this. 1 second. Let me just do, I don't know, in here. So you could have either, so what Samuel is asking is, hey, I want to start the likes, right? Want to store the likes. I can do it in different ways. I have my collection, my users collection, right? So this will be users. So inside the users collection, there are a bunch of users. So user one, user two, one, user two. And then each of these users can have an additional subcollection that says something like likes, right? Likes. And in here, these likes could be post one, post two, etc. And same thing would be for the user two. So the user two, whoops, the user two would also have its own likes, like this, like this, right? This would be one option. Another option would be the other way around, which would be I've got my posts, right? I've got my posts. And here in my posts, I have my likes. Sorry, I've got my post, obviously, post. And the post has its own likes. And its like is targeting a specific user. So user one or user two, like this. It depends on the query because obviously, if you are visiting the user profile and you want to get, hey, I want to see all the posts that I've liked in the past, right? To make that query, obviously, it's more convenient to have the data like this because I know that I'm the user one. So I have direct access to all my likes in here. And I can say, oh, okay, my likes include post one and post two. If I want to do, hey, from this post, I want to see all the users who have liked this. The easiest way to do it is by storing it like this. So post, I got my post and I got my likes and I can see each of the users. If I have this structure and I want to do the reverse order, so I have this structure and I want to, me as a user, get all the posts that I like, then I will have to make a query that says, hey, retrieve me all the posts where it has where inside the nested likes it has my user ID, something like that, right? So it can become resource intensive, and that's how you can probably imagine how the database architecture of social media platforms, it's pretty complex because it really affects the way that you store the data depending on how you want to query it. Obviously, you could do things like replicate the data. So when you like something, not only you would store it in the post, you could also store it in the users like that. Or you could have an external collection. So instead of doing this, you could have a different collection that says likes. right? And in here, in this likes, I would have like. And this like, I know that it belongs to a specific user and a specific user one and the post, and post like this, post one, right? And in that particular case, that would solve the query for both cases, because I could say, hey, okay, get me all the likes that are as me as a user, right? That would be in here like this. So then when I'm getting those likes, I can get both the data of the user and the post at the same time. Uh, so it really depends on how you're going to be querying this data. If you only want to get it from one way, so to get only the likes when you're seeing the post, maybe it makes sense like this. If you want to get it from the other way, where you only want to see the likes, the post that you've liked when you access your user profile, maybe you want to do it like this. If you want to do it in both ways, then you might want to create like a relationship table, a relationship collection, where you are kind of creating like a middle ground where you store everything and it's easy accessible from both places. Like this, I'm storing all the likes, and each like contains the data of the user at the post. So I can query that and see exactly the relationship in both cases. Ooh. Hopefully this is making sense. That's exactly right. My fear is that at some point the user's liked items gets larger than the typical items total like sub collection. Yeah, it's tricky, and I mean it's common that you will have to do updates and migrations like that. What would you advise performance wise? I mean, performance wise depends. Leon, do you want users to be able to see the posts that they've liked? Or do you only want to see the likes on each of the posts? Because performance wise, the best solution is this if you don't care about the other counterpart. If you care about both, then in that case, I would do this way. Might be a bit more resource intensive, but you can always create indexes and stuff like that. There's a lot of things to cover about Firebase, because in Firebase optimize you can optimize how you are querying things by creating indexes, which you can do it in here. And an index basically means that you are saying, hey, Firebase, this kind of query, like I want to get the likes that belong to me as a user, I'm going to be doing it pretty much like very often. So that means that I want you to be ready to give me the data as fast as possible. So you create an index for that. And Firebase uses a bit of storage to create like kind of like small buckets where it stores the data that it's optimized for that specific query. So that would be an option as well to improve the performance. But it really depends on the use case. So I think that first you want to make sure that you have in mind all the different relationships and all the different ways that you are going to be querying the data, and in that case you will be able to come up with the best architecture. Do indexes reduce read operations? They don't reduce read operations, they reduce the rows that are read. When you are doing, for example, get me all the tasks that belong to a specific user, right? So in that case, so imagine that that's going to happen in the next live stream, okay? And the next live stream, I'm going to add an additional field for the tasks that it's something like user ID, right? So then we can log in and only get the tasks for a specific user. Now imagine that I'm making a query, I'm saying, hey, get me all the tasks that belong to me, to my user ID. If I don't have an index, what's going to happen is that Firebase will have to read through all the rows that I have in my database to see, okay, this row does not belong to him. No. This row belongs to him. Yes. This row does not belong. No. Blah, blah, blah. And it has to go through the entire table to see which items are belonging to me, which items are not belonging to me, right? If you create an index, instead of having to read the entire table, Firebase takes the rows that knows that are dedicated to each of the users, right? So these tasks belong to this user. We put it in a bucket. These tasks belong to that user. We put it in the bucket, right? And the moment that you perform the query, instead of reading the whole table, Firebase says, hey, okay, I actually have an index where I've classified the tasks by user ID. So I know the user ID. I'm going to go to that bucket where I stored that and I'm going to get it. Right. So it makes it more performant because it's faster, obviously, and because it reduces the amount of rows that it has to read to the entire table to find, not table collection, but it would be the same thing, to find the tasks that belong to me. The only downside is that obviously because it has to create all these little buckets where it stores the data, it takes up a bit more space, but it's definitely worth it, the trade-off, if it's a query that it's done very often, right? Because you're saving up a lot of rows read in it like that. Let me know if, Samuel, if this makes sense. So in usage, writes, reads, and I think that the reads, yeah, I think that it should save up reads, because I think that in Firebase, the reads count for all the items that it has processed, all the rows that it has processed. It would be interesting to see what we could do with Firebase with the JavaScript API and Wized, like custom requests. Well, actually, for when I was building this system for the likes, nested likes and comments that I just did here, in that case, we would need to use the JavaScript, the JavaScript API in that case. So maybe we can do it at the end of the next live stream if I have enough time. What do you think, Niels? Simon? I think that it could be cool. Yeah. Because then we're doing the full deep dive of Firebase, not only with the native Wized UI, but also with the custom JavaScript API that we offer. That seems like a good idea. Nice. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, cool. Well, it's 20 minutes past the time, so I think I'm going to end the live stream here. But first of all, I appreciate everyone being here, being interested in Wized and Firebase. Next live stream, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about everything related to authentication in Firebase. So logging in, logging out, signing up, loading items specific per user, etc., etc. So if you want to learn that, see you next Friday in here. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend, and see you on social media. Goodbye.